A fateful crash landing. The blaring alarm jolted Jack Thompson awake. Red warning lights flashed across the control panel of his spacecraft, the ISV Odyssey. He was in trouble. Computer, status report. He barked, adrenaline surging through his veins as he gripped the controls. Multiple system failures detected. Navigation offline. Propulsion compromised. Crash imminent. The ship's AI responded in an eerily calm voice. Jack gritted his teeth. After a decade voyaging through the cosmos on a scientific mission, this couldn't be how it ended. He'd dedicated his life to expanding humanity's knowledge of the universe. Now he just needed to survive. The ship plummeted through the atmosphere of an uncharted planet, flames licking the exterior. Jack braced for impact as the ground rushed up to meet him. The Odyssey hit with a shuddering crash, skidding across an open field in a shower of sparks and twisted metal. Then silence. The acrid scent of burnt wiring filled the cockpit. Jack took stock of his condition. Miraculously, he seemed uninjured, but his ship was a wreck. He needed to get out and assess his options. Grabbing his survival kit, Jack stumbled out of the smoking remains of the Odyssey. As the hatch hissed open, he found himself surrounded by a group of humanoid figures. Were they friendly or hostile? He raised his hand slowly. "I come in peace," he said, hoping they understood. As his eyes adjusted to the bright alien sunlight, the figures came into focus. They were undoubtedly female, with lithe frames and delicate features. Their skin was a pale lavender hue, and they wore flowing gossamer gowns. Long silver hair cascaded down their backs. They spoke in hushed tones, staring at Jack like he was a ghost. Finally, one stepped forward. You're a male." Her voice was filled with incredulity. Jack nodded slowly. "Yes, my name is Jack Thompson. I'm an astronaut from the planet Earth. My ship malfunctioned, and I crashed here." The women exchanged shocked looks. The leader spoke again, her violet eyes wide. "I am Aria, Prime Minister of Femina Prime. You must come with us. This is unprecedented." Jack was utterly confused but sensed he had no choice. As the women led him towards a gleaming city in the distance, he couldn't shake the feeling that his life was about to change in unimaginable ways. A society built around motherhood. As Jack walked through the sprawling metropolis, he marveled at the technological wonders surrounding him. Soaring spires glittered with an opalescent sheen, connected by graceful arching walkways. Hovering vehicles dipped through the air, weaving between the buildings like a ballet of machinery. But what struck him most was the absence of men. Everywhere he looked, he saw only women going about their daily lives. Aria must have noticed his confusion. "You are on Femina Prime," she explained. "Centuries ago, a genetic plague wiped out most of our male population. We were forced to adapt, to find new ways to reproduce and continue our species. Now, our civilization revolves around the creation and nurturing of new life." As if on cue, a group of children ran past, their laughter echoing through the pristine streets. The adult women paused to smile and coo at the little ones. It was clear that children were cherished here like precious jewels. At the center of the city stood an immense domed structure. "The Maternity Palace," Aria said reverently. "The heart of our world. It is here that our most advanced reproductive technologies are housed." Inside, Jack was astounded by the gleaming banks of machinery, pulsing with vibrant light. Women in sleek white uniforms monitored holographic displays, their faces rapt with concentration. "Our greatest minds have developed methods to extract and preserve healthy DNA from our dwindling male population," Aria continued. "Through advanced gene manipulation and artificial wombs, we are able to create new generations. But the process is imperfect, and fewer females are born each cycle." Her voice trailed off, and Jack could hear the undercurrent of worry. "What happens when there are no more males?" he asked softly. Aria met his gaze, her eyes haunted. "Extinction. Unless we find a solution, our great civilization will fade away, our wonders lost to the ages. When you arrived, A spark of hope dawned. A male, healthy and strong, from beyond the stars themselves. She shook her head as if to banish an impossible dream. But I am getting ahead of myself. You must be weary from your ordeal. Come, let me show you to your quarters. There is much for you to process. As Jack followed Aria through the winding corridors, his mind reeled. He had never imagined a world like this, where the very survival of a species depended on the tiny forms coddled in high-tech cribs. What role could a lone human man play on an alien planet of women? The weight of their desperate hope settled on his shoulders, even as his heart urged him to find a way back home. Jack's new purpose. Jack sat on the balcony of his new quarters, high above the bustling city. The accommodations were lavish, with every conceivable comfort provided, but the opulence couldn't quell the turmoil in his heart. He gazed up at the unfamiliar constellations, yearning for the sight of Earth's moon, the Big Dipper, Orion's belt, anchors of home in an infinite sea of stars. What were his crewmates doing now? Had they given him up for dead? The thought of never again setting foot on his homeworld filled him with a visceral ache. A soft chime announced a visitor. "Enter," Jack called, tearing his eyes away from the alien sky. Aria glided in, her gossamer gown trailing behind her. Her expression was grave. "Jack," she said without preamble, "I know we have asked much of you already, but I fear we must impose upon you further." She took a deep breath, as if steeling herself. "Our geneticists have analyzed your DNA. You are compatible with our reproductive process. More than compatible, your genetic profile is robust, free of the degradation that plagues our dwindling supply of male genetic material." Jack's mouth went dry. He had an inkling of where this was going. "I cannot order you," Aria continued, "but I am begging you. Will you help us create a new generation? Will you be the father our race so desperately needs?" The weight of her words hit him like a physical blow. They were asking him to be a savior, to give up any hope of returning to his old life. Could he do it? Could he turn his back on an entire civilization of women, on the innocent children who might never be born? He thought of the little ones he'd seen in the streets, their eyes alight with joy and curiosity. They deserved a chance at life, didn't they? But what of his duty to humanity, to the mission he'd sworn to complete? Was one man's life too high a price to pay for the continuation of an alien species? Aria must have seen the conflict raging in his eyes. She laid a gentle hand on his arm. "I know it is an impossible choice," she said softly, "but I have seen the greatness in you, Jack Thompson. I believe you have the courage and compassion to be the hero we need." Jack closed his eyes, torn between two irreconcilable futures. In the end, there was only one choice he could make. "I'll do it," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "I'll stay and help you. I can't turn my back on the innocent lives at stake." Aria's eyes shone with unused tears. "Thank you," she whispered. "You have given our world hope." As she left him to his swirling thoughts, Jack knew his life had irrevocably changed. He was no longer just an explorer, but a father to a new generation on a distant world. He could only pray that he was up to the task. Adapting to a new world. In the following days, Jack immersed himself in the wonders of Femina Prime. The women were eager to share their knowledge, to welcome him into the fabric of their society. He marveled at their advanced propulsion systems, capable of traversing vast distances in the blink of an eye. Their zero-point energy reactors powered entire cities with clean, limitless energy, and their mastery over genetics was breathtaking, allowing them to heal disease, extend life, and even guide their own evolution. But it was in the field of reproduction that their technology truly shone. In the Maternity Palace, Jack witnessed marvels he could scarcely comprehend. Towering banks of artificial wombs nurtured developing fetuses, each one carefully monitored and tended. Genetic engineers worked tirelessly to weave new life from the strands of DNA, crafting each child like a work of art. And at the center of it all was Jack's own contribution. With a mixture of awe and trepidation, He provided samples of his genetic material, watching as the Femina scientists reverently incorporated it into their reproductive matrix. "Your DNA is a treasure," the lead geneticist told him, her eyes shining with excitement. "With its robust diversity and lack of degradation, it will invigorate our genetic pool, giving our future generations a fighting chance." As the first embryos developed, Jack felt a growing sense of attachment. These were his children, in a way, even if they would be raised by the Femina women. He couldn't help but wonder what kind of world they would inherit. Beyond the labs, Jack found himself drawn into the daily life of the city. He played with the children in the lush gardens, marveling at their quick minds and infectious laughter. He discussed philosophy and science with the scholars, learning their unique perspectives shaped by a society of women. And through it all, Aria was a constant presence, a guide and confidant. As they walked through the fragrant orchards or sat together in quiet contemplation, Jack felt a bond growing between them, a connection born of shared purpose and mutual respect. "I never imagined my life would take this turn," he confessed to her one evening, as the twin moons rose over the city. "But I can't deny the feeling that I'm meant to be here, that this is my destiny." Aria smiled, her hand warm in his. "The universe works in mysterious ways, Jack. Perhaps it brought you to us for a reason. Not just to save us, but to find your own true path." Looking into her luminous eyes, Jack could almost believe it. But even as he settled into his new role, he couldn't shake the sense that challenges still lay ahead. Femina Prime had welcomed him. But how would the rest of the universe react to a planet of women and their human savior? Only time would tell. A threat emerges. Jack stood on the observation deck, gazing out at the serene cityscape below. In the months since his arrival, Femina Prime had begun to feel like home. The first generation of children born from his DNA were thriving, their laughter echoing through the halls of the Maternity Palace. But today, a shadow hung over the city. Aria had summoned him for an emergency meeting, her usually composed features etched with worry. As he entered the council chamber, he was struck by the tension in the air. The normally serene faces of the Femina leaders were grim. "Jack," Aria said without preamble, "we have received disturbing intelligence. A rival planet, Amazonia, has learned of our reproductive breakthroughs. They are an all-female civilization like ours, but they have taken a different path. Rather than nurturing life, they have focused on conquest and domination." A holographic display flickered to life, showing a harsh, militaristic world. Sleek warships bristled with weapons, and legions of warriors marched in perfect unison. "Amazonia's own male population has long since died out," Aria continued. "They see our success with your DNA as a threat to their way of life. We have intercepted communications indicating they plan to invade and seize our technology. And you." Jack's blood ran cold. The thought of these warrior women laying waste to the peaceful cities of Femina Prime, stealing the children he had helped create, it was unbearable. "We have advanced technology," one of the counselors said, "but we are not a militaristic society. Our defenses are limited." All eyes turned to Jack. He straightened, a glint of steel entering his gaze. "On Earth, I was a soldier before a new future." The streets of the capital city became a war zone. Amazonian warriors, clad in form-fitting armor and wielding energy blades, clashed with the Femina defenders under Jack's command. Laser fire crisscrossed the once peaceful avenues. Explosions rocked the foundations of the soaring towers. But the Femina women fought with the ferocity of mothers defending their children, their high-tech weapons evening the odds against the Amazonians' brutal strength. At the heart of the battle, Jack rallied his troops, his old military training coming back like muscle memory. He led daring raids on enemy positions, sabotaging their weapons and communications. Side by side with Aria, he fought to push back the invaders block by block. But the Amazonians kept coming, driven by a fanatical desire to seize the reproductive technology that was Femina Prime's greatest treasure. They laid siege to the Maternity Palace, determined to capture the artificial wombs and genetic banks within. In a desperate gamble, Jack led a small team on a stealth mission into the heart of the enemy command ship. If they could cut off the head of the snake, the invading forces would be thrown into disarray. Through narrow corridors they crept, evading patrols and security systems. At last they reached the bridge, bursting in with weapons blazing. The Amazonian commander fell, shock etched on her face as she witnessed a man fighting against her. With their leader gone, the Amazonian forces fell into chaos. Seizing the moment, the Femina fleet pressed their advantage, driving the enemy ships back. On the ground, Aria and her warriors advanced, retaking the city street by street. As the last Amazonian dropship flowed into the sky, a cheer went up from the Femina defenders. They had won. Their home was safe, their children protected. In the aftermath, as the city began to rebuild, Jack stood before the Council of Mothers. Aria stepped forward, her eyes shining with pride and something more. "Jack Thompson," she said formally, "you came to us as a stranger, but you have become our savior. You have fought for our children as if they were your own. In the face of annihilation, you have given us a future." She held out a hand, and another woman stepped forward bearing a gossamer sash in the shimmering colors of the Femina flag. "By the power vested in me as Prime Minister, and with the blessings of every woman on Femina Prime, I name you High Protector of the realm. From this day forward, you are one of us, now and forever." As Aria draped the sash across his shoulders, the hall erupted in applause. Jack felt a swell of emotion, a sense of belonging he had never known before. Earth was his past, but Femina Prime was his future. In the years that followed, Jack took his place as a leader and father to a new generation. The children born from his DNA grew and thrived, their laughter filling the streets once more. With their protector watching over them, Femina Prime entered a new golden age, their technology and culture blossoming like never before. And at Jack's side stood Aria, his constant companion and dearest friend. Together, they guided their world into a bright tomorrow, a shining beacon of hope in a universe full of wonders.